Hi, my name is Evan, and I want to put a spotlight on something that happens far more often than people admit. Judgment at first glance is still very real. Folks take one look at your clothes, your corner of the room, who you're standing beside, and, in a breath, decide your entire story. You might be thinking, surely people don't still behave like that. I wish that were true. If you've ever been spoken over or treated like air, you already know the answer. When my sister's future father-in-law pretended I didn't exist at her wedding, and then flipped to friendly the second he learned who I actually was, I gave him a reply that fit. You may wonder how someone can switch that fast. I'll explain. But to make sense of it, I need to rewind to where the road started. My sister Brooke and I were raised by our dad. We didn't grow up with our mother. She left when we were kids, remarried, and built a different life somewhere else. It was the three of us, and honestly, we were okay. Dad owned a business. Like anyone grinding solo, he had good runs and bad. But he made sure we never went without the basics. He worked hard, and while he wasn't perfect, he was there. We thought that pattern would hold. Then one morning, flipped our world on its back. I was a few months shy of finishing college. Brooke was in the home stretch of her senior year in high school. I can still feel the phone in my hand when the call came about the crash. Dad didn't make it. You don't get trained for a sentence like that. No matter your age, hearing your father is gone, just like that, splits something inside you. I drove home without a word or music. Brooke was waiting. I was the one who had to say the words out loud. She crumpled into me, and I held on. But grief wasn't the worst wave. It was everything that came next. It turned out Dad's business had heavy debts dragging behind it. Loans, overdue payments, financial fires he'd been trying to put out quietly. The moment the banks learned he'd died, they didn't pause to send condolences. They moved. They seized the house, the cars, the office, everything tied to collateral. Within weeks, the life we knew evaporated. No cushion left, just 2 suitcases and 2 siblings, trying to decide what to do now. I'll never forget that moment after the funeral, when the food was packed away. People had gone home, and it was only me and Brooke in a too-quiet kitchen. This is it, I thought. That's when the truth set. We were all each other had. After we buried our father, I didn't have the luxury to fall apart the way people picture grief. I was the one left to take care of Brooke. While my classmates mapped graduation parties and internships, I measured a future where rent, food, and bills were my responsibility. I had no idea how to begin, but I knew failure wasn't an option on the table. I forced myself to finish school barely. I picked up any work I could land. In the daylight, I was a student. After dark, I was whatever else the day needed. Barista, delivery runner, temp assistant. If it paid, I said yes. Whole stretches went by where sleep meant an accidental hour on a couch. I left before sunrise and came back past midnight. My body was spent. My mind never stopped counting. Brooke needed what she needed, and I made sure she had it. Every dollar I made got stretched until it squeaked. Of course, you can't juggle that much without dropping something. For me, it was my relationship. I had a girlfriend then. She was kind and patient at the start, but the slow drip of late replies, missed calls, and last-minute cancellations turned into a flood. She'd say, "You're never fully here," or "I don't feel like I'm on your list." I understood. I didn't blame her. It wasn't fair to ask her to fill in where I was absent. She wanted a boyfriend who could show up emotionally and physically, but everything I had was already spoken for. So I ended it. Not because I stopped caring, but because I had one job to do. I had to pour all of me into one goal: get Brooke and me out of that hole. That was the only thing that mattered then. I told myself, love has its time. Right now, she needs me more. After college, I grabbed a corporate job. It paid the bills and gave me steady ground. It wasn't a passion play, but I couldn't sit around waiting for perfect. Money was due, and my sister was counting on me. Even while ticking clock time at a 9 to 5, I kept learning. Short online courses, certifications, anything that would sharpen me when it came time to climb. I needed to earn more, save more, and plan better for the future, for both of us. Then I heard 2 friends from school were building a software product. They were developing an AI-based tool to automate back-end workflows. It sounded ambitious, maybe too big, but it grabbed me. I reached out. Need a hand? I wasn't the AI brain, but I knew business, marketing, and how to build something from zero and sell it. That's how I joined. The startup became a side grind. Day, corporate job. Night and weekend, the build. It wasn't pretty. I'd nod off on the keyboard, wake with a stiff neck, and keep going. I did whatever kept Brooke and me afloat. The early stretch was punishing. Bugs, arguments over features. Nights when we wondered if we were simply wrong. One of the co-founders, my friend, got tired and tapped out after about 2 years. I didn't hold it against him. We'd poured time and money into a basin that didn't look like it would ever fill. More than once, I thought about walking away too. On certain days, I'd stare at my balance and think I was chasing a mirage. So much cash gone, so much sleep burned. But something in me wouldn't let go. If this works, I kept saying, it changes everything. Eventually, it did. We launched a new feature, an automated logic engine that let companies smooth out internal workflows. At first, clients liked it quietly. Then they loved it loudly. Word spread. Emails, calls, demo requests stacked up. Industry blogs picked up what we'd built. After all the setbacks and midnight shifts, people finally noticed. Even then, I didn't quit the day job. I was still cautious, still watching pennies. My co-founder, who stayed naturally, became our public face. He handled the events, interviews, and talks. That was fine with me. I didn't need a microphone. I was the person backstage making sure the lights turned on when they were supposed to. Looking back, I can say those years carved me into a new version of myself. Pressure, sacrifice, and a stubborn conviction that I could build a business and still be there for my sister. All of that forged me. Then one evening, I had just dropped my bag by the door when Brooke called. She had a sound in her voice, like the words were big, and she was trying to find the right first one. Evan, I'm getting married. I blinked like I hadn't heard right. I knew she was seeing someone. We talked. Marriage felt sudden. I didn't even have the guy's full name memorized. So I asked questions, not to interrogate, but to see the picture. How long had it been serious? Why now? That's when she told me they'd known each other for years. They reconnected after college and had been solid for a while before she brought him up. She sounded truly happy, and that mattered more than my calendar. She said her fiancé wanted to meet me. Of course, I'm the only real family she had left to vet him. If someone was going to marry my sister, he could sit across from me first. We set a casual dinner. The evening he walked in, and I saw his face. Something slid into place. We shook hands, sat, talked, and dots connected. His father was a major client in our space. In fact, the man had been pushing hard to buy our company for months. I'd never thought about him beyond contracts and negotiations. Now I was eating with his son, the man who wanted to marry my sister. The info landed with a jolt. I didn't show it. I listened and tried to see who this fiancé was, separate from his father's shadow. Because let's be fair, parents don't always define the children. Brooke must have felt me hang back after dinner. She told me she wasn't being forced or rushed. She said she'd known him long enough to trust him, and that the timing felt right to her bones. When I looked into her eyes, the words had weight. The first time I met her future father-in-law was during the planning a family meet and greet. I didn't expect a red carpet, but I didn't expect how cold he came off. I could feel him measuring me before I'd spoken. He barely looked in my direction when I introduced myself. At one point, he tilted his head and said, "Oh, you're just her brother. I assumed her father would be here." On paper, harmless. In person, it landed like, "You're not enough to represent your family." I took a breath and said plainly, "Our father passed away years ago." He hardly reacted. He moved on and asked, "What do you do?" Right then, I knew exactly what kind of man I was dealing with. The kind that wants your title, salary bracket, network, and circles before deciding you're worth a handshake. He was already trying to pin me into a little box. I wasn't about to audition. "I work a corporate job for now," I said. He nodded a fraction and let the topic die. I smiled. Something in me said the day would come when he'd look at me differently. The wedding day arrived with that soft light that makes everything look gentle. Brooke looked stunning, happy in the way that lifts a room. That was all I wanted. I was making small talk when the father-in-law passed. I was right there. He glanced my way, met my eyes for a heartbeat, then looked past me. Purposefully. It wasn't necessary. He'd already made his judgment of me during the planning. I thought he'd at least pretend in public. I didn't bite. I kept my focus on the guests with me. This was Brooke's day. I wasn't handing a snub my energy. Later, during the reception, a coordinator tapped my shoulder. "You're up next for a short speech." "Wait, what speech?" I asked. Apparently, I'd been added to the lineup without anyone telling me. I thought about passing. Then I figured, why not? Brooke deserved to hear my voice on her day. I walked forward, took the mic, and breathed. I hadn't written a word. So I spoke from the only place I had my heart. I opened with, "Hi, I'm Evan Brooke's brother." A few heads turned. Some folks probably expected parents. Then I said, "I wasn't just her brother growing up. I became her guardian when I was barely out of college." You could feel the shift. People leaned in. I shared how we lost our dad in a crash and how that inverted everything. She was still finishing high school. I was in my last term. We had no one else. Our mother had remarried and had been out of the picture for years. So it was just us. I talked about juggling multiple jobs to keep the lights on, about how I sacrificed a lot, including a relationship to make sure she had the life I thought she deserved. Then I added, almost casually, all this while I was also helping build a startup from the ground up. I glanced at the doors and smiled. Shout out to my co-founder, who just got here fashionably late, as always. The room paused in that way people do when new pieces change a picture. The current shifted again. I didn't say any of it to brag. I said it because context matters. I wanted people to understand why my bond with Brooke runs deeper than the usual. I wrapped by saying I was happy she'd found someone who respects and loves her, and that I'm confident she's in good hands. After the toast, I stepped down and headed back toward my seat. Before I made it 3 steps, guess who appeared? The father-in-law. This time, all smiles, like we'd been trading holiday cards for years. He made a beeline for me and my co-founder, shook our hands hard, and started praising our software like it was oxygen. "Your platform has been a total game changer for my company," he said. "I've been trying to buy you for a while." I nodded politely. "That's good to hear. We can talk business after the wedding." I didn't want to get into it right there. But then he leaned in and asked, "Why didn't you tell me you were a co-founder when we first met?" He wasn't accusing me exactly, but he looked blindsided. I turned to him fully, met his eyes, and said, "Why would I?" "So you could pretend to be nice to me?" He froze. I said it simply, then walked away, leaving him there like a man who had just learned his own blind spot. So where do we stand now? On the surface, not much changed. Underneath, everything did. We never sold our company to my sister's father-in-law, not out of spite. It just wasn't right. He tried to buy us before, and I knew it wasn't respect driving him. It felt like he wanted control, not partnership. We stayed the course and grew on our terms. Ironically, his company still uses our software. They pay the license. They send support emails. We treat them like any other client. Professional, polite, nothing extra. Strictly business. What matters most to me now is that Brooke is doing great. Her husband is respectful to me, even after what happened with his dad. That tells me a lot about who he is. Honestly, that gives me peace. Whatever awkward notes remain with his family, my sister is happy. After everything we came through, that's what I wanted all along. And there are a few things that stuck with me. Lessons I keep like tools in my pocket. First, Never assume someone's worth by surface details or the one-line intro they give you. You don't know what they've carried or built from scratch. I've walked into rooms where people looked past me like I wasn't there until they saw a title under my name or recognized the company I helped create. That kind of respect is empty. If you can't treat someone well when they're quiet and humble, your applause doesn't mean much when they're successful. Second, respect should be your default, not something you trade for benefit. Don't give it only to people who can open doors for you. Don't wait for someone to prove they matter before you act right. You lose nothing by being decent. You lose more than you think when you aren't. And third, often the quietest person in the room is the one holding the tent up. They're carrying weights you can't see. So, the next time you feel yourself skimming past someone, pause. Ask yourself why. Then choose respect anyway. To close, I'll say this. True respect isn't demanded or bought. It's earned by how you treat people, especially when no one is watching. Status shifts, money moves, power rotates, character remains. The way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you act when you think it doesn't count. That's the definition that sticks. Everyone has a story you don't know. Be humble. If any of this mirrored something you've lived, thanks for hearing me out. Take care of your people. And don't let someone else's shallow math define you.